The mining colony on the edge of the Orion Belt was silent, except for the echo of explosions. Smoke rose from the ground, and the metal structures that once held life were now broken. The air smelled of burnt fuel and death. The Kreth Syndicate had arrived hours ago, hunting for human survivors who had fled the last human outpost in the region. Ratek, the mercenary commander, stood tall among his soldiers. His scales shimmered dark green under the dim lights, and his yellow eyes scanned the wreckage with cold satisfaction. He was known across the galaxy for one thing: never showing mercy. The humans were supposed to be easy prey. They were small, weak, emotional, and soft-skinned. His soldiers laughed while kicking open doors and dragging out survivors. A young human pilot named Han Ji-soo was thrown to the ground in front of him. Her face was bruised and her flight suit was torn. She tried to rise, but one of the mercenaries pressed a clawed foot on her shoulder and pushed her down. Ratek looked at her and grinned. Humans always running, always begging. You should have stayed on your little blue planet. Ji-soo didn't reply. She only stared back, her eyes sharp even in pain. That small defiance made Ratek laugh harder. He lifted his plasma pistol and pointed it at her head. Before he could shoot, one of his soldiers shouted, "Commander!" We found another one. Alone near the storage bay, Ratek turned. A tall human man was being dragged forward, his hands tied. He was quiet, his face calm, his eyes dark and unreadable. There was something in his look that made even the mercenary holding him uneasy. "What's your name, human?" Ratek asked. The man spoke slowly. "Park Daejin." Ratek tilted his head. "You are their leader?" "No," Daejin said. "Just a soldier," Ratek chuckled. "A soldier? You? You don't even carry a weapon." Daejin looked at him for a long time before replying, "I don't need one." The mercenaries around him laughed. They had seen many humans before, but none who dared to talk like this. Daejin's voice was quiet, almost calm, but it carried something that silenced a few of them. Ratek moved closer. "Tell me, soldier, why shouldn't I kill you and your people?" Daejin's gaze didn't move. "Because I'm warning you," he said softly. "Never hunt humans." Ratek laughed again, louder this time. "A warning from prey? Do you know who I am?" "I know enough," Daejin said. "You won't forget me." The commander's grin faded. He motioned for his soldier to strike Daejin. The mercenary hit him across the face, but Daejin didn't move or make a sound. He only looked at the ground as if waiting for something. The soldier raised his weapon again, but suddenly a soft beep echoed through the air. Then another. And another. Ratek looked around, confused. On the wall, small blinking lights began to appear. Red dots glowed like fireflies in the shadows. "What is this?" one of the mercenaries shouted. Daejin looked up. His lips curved slightly, almost like a smile. "Too late," he said. The explosion hit a second later. The entire left side of the colony burst into fire. The shockwave threw the mercenaries to the ground. Smoke filled the air, and the sound of metal tearing apart echoed through the hall. Ratek roared in anger and confusion. "Find him! Find that human!" But when the smoke cleared, Daejin was gone. The ropes that had tied his hands lay burned on the ground. Through the chaos, Ji-soo crawled behind a piece of broken metal. She looked around, dazed, and saw movement in the shadows. A figure appeared, Daejin. His face was covered in soot, but his eyes were sharp and steady. "Can you move?" he asked her. Ji-soo nodded weakly. You did that?" "Not all of it," he said. "Just the start." They moved through the burning corridors together. Daejin led her through the maze of wreckage like someone who had planned every step. Every turn they took was just ahead of the mercenaries chasing them. "Who are you?" Ji-soo asked between breaths. "Someone who learned what happens when you let them think you're weak," he said. They reached the airlock. Daejin opened a small device on his wrist and the door began to cycle open. "Go," he told her. "There's a shuttle outside. Head for the dark side of the moon. You'll find a beacon there. What about you?" she asked. "I'm staying." "Staying?" "You'll die here!" He shook his head. "Not yet." Ji-soo wanted to argue, but before she could, Daejin pushed her through the door and hit the control. The airlock sealed behind her. Ratek and his remaining soldiers arrived moments later, their weapons ready. The commander's eyes burned with rage. "You think you can hide from me, human?" he shouted. Daejin stepped out from behind a fallen beam. His clothes were torn, his skin bruised, but he stood straight. "I'm not hiding." Ratek aimed his blaster. "Then die proud." Daejin didn't move. His voice was low but clear. "You never learn. You think strength is about claws and armor. But real strength is knowing when to make fear work for you. Before Ratek could reply, Dejin pressed a small switch in his hand. The ceiling above them exploded. The floor shook and the mercenaries were thrown into chaos again. Fire poured through the room and part of the structure began to collapse. Dejin moved fast, grabbing one of the mercenaries' rifles and firing through the smoke. His shots were clean and precise. He didn't waste a single bullet. Ratek tried to fight back, roaring as he fired, but Dejin disappeared into the smoke each time. His movements were silent, almost ghost-like. One by one, the mercenaries fell until only Ratek remained. When the smoke cleared, Dejin stood a few meters away, holding the rifle loosely. His eyes met Ratek's. "This isn't over, human," Ratek hissed. "I know," Dejin said quietly. "That's the point." He dropped the rifle and walked toward the open hangar bay. A wind of burning air swept across the floor as he stepped out into the night. The stars glowed cold above the wrecked colony. Behind him, the remaining fuel cells ignited, sending a pillar of fire into the sky. From his ship orbiting above, Dejin watched as the colony burned. Jisu's shuttle signal showed up safely on his display. He leaned back in his seat and whispered to himself, "They'll come again. But next time they'll remember." Far below, Ratek crawled from the debris, his body torn and bleeding. He looked at the flames lighting the dark sky and thought of the man's words. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never known before: fear. The aftermath of the Orion Belt attack left the galaxy talking. Across star systems, rumors spread of a human who had survived the Kreth Syndicate's ambush and left the feared Ratek beaten and humiliated. In the dark corners of mercenary stations, whispers of the human's name, Park Dejin, traveled faster than any official report. Some laughed it off as myth, but others remembered the faces of their fallen comrades and did not laugh at all. Far from the ruins of the mining colony, Dejin sat in the control room of an old human ship. The interior smelled of ozone and metal, but it was quiet enough for him to think. The stars outside his viewport were endless and cold, but he found comfort in their stillness. He adjusted the controls, checking the shuttle that had carried Hanjisu safely away. Her survival mattered, but the bigger problem was the Kreth Syndicate. He had no illusions. They would come for him again, and next time the hunt would be even more organized. Ratek would not forget the humiliation. That meant Dejin had to prepare. He needed allies, and he needed a plan. Weeks later, on a hidden station near the dark side of the moon, Captain Lee Mira awaited him. She was one of the leaders of Aegis Command, a covert human defense organization. Her office was small, functional, and filled with data screens. Mira had seen enough of humanity's enemies to know how dangerous Dejin's situation was. "Sit down," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "You're alive." "That's more than anyone expected." Dejin lowered himself into the chair, his expression unreadable. "I am," he said. Mira studied him closely. "Do you understand what you did back there?" "I made them remember," he said simply. Mira sighed. "That's the problem. Now every mercenary and warlord out there thinks hunting humans is dangerous. You've become a target." "More than before," Dejin leaned forward. "I know, but fear is better than death. I need to make them afraid before they come for all of us." Mira shook her head. "You're thinking too small. They won't stop. Not until they believe humans are weak or dead. You need more than tricks. You need an army, resources, and strategy." Dejin's eyes narrowed. "I work alone." "You don't have to," she said. "I can help you. We have agents, weapons, ships, everything you need. But you can't keep fighting one by one. You'll die eventually." He remained silent. She waited, then finally said, "I'll tell you what. Start by helping us gather intel, track their movements, find out what Ratek plans next. That's the first step." Dejin nodded slightly. "Where do I start?" Mira tapped a screen. "The Outer Rim. Several colonies are at risk. Syndicate scouts have been spotted near the Helios sector. You go there, watch, report. If possible, send a message back to me." He stood and left without another word. Mira watched him go, knowing the danger he faced, but also knowing that if anyone could survive it, Dejin could. The Helios sector was a maze of asteroids and abandoned outposts. Dejin piloted his small ship with care, using shadows and debris to hide from Syndicate sensors. He had no intention of fighting until necessary. Observation was the first priority. Within days, he discovered the scale of the Syndicate's operations. Small raiding parties moved between colonies, taking supplies, killing humans, and spreading terror. Each attack was carefully recorded, but Dejin noticed a pattern. Every raid seemed to test defenses, measure human response, and avoid prolonged conflict. They were learning about humans preparing for something larger. He transmitted a report back to Mira. They are organized. They are learning, and they believe they are stronger than us. Mira's reply came quickly. Then let them be wrong. Prepare for engagement only when you can control the outcome. Stay hidden until you strike. Days passed. Dejin moved from asteroid to asteroid, observing syndicate patrols. He noted weapons, numbers, and tactics. He learned their weaknesses: overconfidence, reliance on tech, and impatience. He also learned something more important. They had underestimated human adaptability. One night, while resting on a derelict mining station, he heard movement outside. Drones hovered near the station's perimeter. Dejin's instincts kicked in. He stayed in the shadows, watching. There were 5 mercenaries scanning the area with thermal sensors. He could have killed them easily, but he didn't. Instead, he disabled their sensors one by one, leaving no trace of his presence. They will come back, he muttered. Stronger. He returned to Mira with his findings. They are bold, he said, and they are learning. They will test every colony. If we do not act soon, humans will suffer. Mira frowned. Then it's time to send a warning. Something they cannot ignore, Dejin agreed. He spent weeks planning. Every movement of the syndicate was logged. Every patrol route, every landing point, every escape route, he knew them all. But he also knew that planning alone was not enough. Humans were stronger not because of weapons, but because of resilience and strategy. When the syndicate launched a raid on a small supply station, Dejin was ready. He used the environment against them. Explosive traps disguised as mining equipment, narrow tunnels to funnel enemies, and decoys made from holographic projections created confusion. The first syndicate wave walked into his trap. Drones were shot out of the sky. Soldiers tripped over hidden wires, and panic spread through the enemy ranks. By the time Ratek's second-in-command Varn arrived with reinforcements, the station was already compromised. Dejin did not fight alone. Human survivors from the colonies joined him quietly, using their knowledge of the terrain. They did not charge blindly but moved strategically. In minutes, the syndicate lost control. Their scouts were captured or fled. Dejin confronted Varn directly. The alien had a tall frame, armored skin, and sharp claws. He sneered at Dejin. Another human thinks he is clever. I am not clever, Dejin said. I am what you are not prepared for. The fight was short but decisive. Dejin used agility, traps, and timing, not brute strength. Varn fell injured but alive. Dejin left him tied and unconscious, a warning for the rest of the syndicate. When Mira received the report, she was impressed. You're becoming more than a soldier, she said. You're becoming a symbol. But symbols attract attention. Ratek will notice. He will come himself, Dejin nodded. Then we wait. And when he comes, he will learn exactly what humans are capable of. As he prepared for the next phase, he reflected on the truth he had learned. Humans were not weak. They were adaptable, strategic, and resilient. Fear was useful, but courage and planning made them unstoppable. Far away in the dark corridors of a syndicate flagship, Ratek reviewed the reports of the raids. Each failure burned like fire in his chest. The human, Park Dejin, had turned his own game against him. For the first time, he felt doubt. Could a single human truly outsmart the Kreth syndicate? Ratek clenched his fists. He will pay, he hissed. No human can defy me and survive. No human. And somewhere among the stars, Dejin watched quietly. He knew Ratek would return. He knew the fight was far from over. But he also knew humans had a power the galaxy had not yet respected, and he would remind every alien who dared hunt them that strength was not always measured by claws and armor. Dejin moved silently among the craters of the abandoned moon. The landscape was jagged and uneven, littered with wreckage from old mining operations. Shadows stretched long under the faint light of a distant sun, perfect for hiding. He had chosen this place intentionally. The syndicate would come looking, confident in their numbers and technology, but here Dejin had control. His scout drones had already detected the approach of the first patrol. There were 20 of them, armed with plasma rifles and motion sensors. They laughed over their communication channels, mocking the humans they thought weak and easily defeated. Dejin watched them carefully, noting every movement. Each step, each scan, each careless glance was recorded in his mind. He set the trap slowly, deliberately. Explosive charges were hidden under rocks, wires stretched across narrow tunnels, and holographic decoys made the shadows shift unnaturally. He didn't need to engage directly. Confusion, fear, and the environment were weapons as sharp as any blade. When the first soldiers entered the trap, the explosion started. Rocks fell, the tunnels shook, and the Syndicate's disciplined formations collapsed. Shouts and screams filled the moon's empty valleys. Daejin moved like a shadow, unseen but always in the right place at the right time. He disabled drones one by one, taking them out with precise shots or electrical surges. Varn's arrival was expected. The alien was taller and stronger than any of the others, his claws glinting under the pale light. He stepped carefully, scanning the area, but Daejin was always ahead. Using tunnels and debris, he appeared and vanished like smoke. Each strike from Varn was dodged with near-perfect timing. Daejin didn't fight for glory. He fought to teach a lesson. Each mercenary that fell was captured or routed but never killed unnecessarily. This was a warning. They were learning too much, and he wanted them alive to spread fear. By the time the fight reached the central canyon of the moon, the Syndicate was in chaos. They had underestimated him completely. Communications failed, their technology malfunctioned, and their confidence crumbled. Daejin's movements were unpredictable. One moment he was on a ridge above them. The next he was in the shadows beside their fallen. He confronted Varn directly in a narrow passage. The alien snarled, swinging his claws with lethal force. Daejin ducked and rolled, barely escaping. "You think you can stop me?" Varn growled. "I am the Kreth Syndicate." Daejin's voice was calm. "You think strength is only power and weapons. But strategy, patience, and knowing your enemy, that is strength too." Varn lunged again, but this time Daejin was ready. Using a narrow tunnel, he funneled the alien into a trap. A falling rock pinned Varn's arm, and a hidden cable bound him tightly. The alien roared, but he could not move. Daejin stepped closer. "This is what happens when you underestimate humans," he said. Elsewhere on the moon, the remaining Syndicate soldiers were fleeing. Some were trapped in explosions, others disabled by Daejin's careful planning. They tried to regroup, but confusion reigned. The humans had become more than soldiers. They were hunters now. Daejin checked the perimeter. Everything was under control. He had taught them a lesson, but he knew this was only the beginning. Ratek would come himself, and when he did, it would be different. This was the first act. The next would be far more dangerous. From his observation point, Daejin contacted Mira. "The raid is over. The Syndicate is in disarray, but they are learning. They will send more next time." "Good work," Mira replied. "But this will provoke them. You must prepare for Ratek himself. He will not ignore what happened here." Daejin nodded. "I know. That is why I am using this moon. It gives me control. I will not face him in open space. I will face him where I decide the fight." He spent the next few days strengthening the area. Every tunnel, every rock, every piece of wreckage was positioned for advantage. Traps were reset, new ones added, and decoys moved to create uncertainty. He also trained Jisoo and other survivors in simple tactics: observation, patience, and using the environment. Humans were small but adaptable. The day came when Ratek himself arrived. He came in a sleek assault ship, flanked by several smaller fighters. His presence radiated power and anger. He expected chaos, but he had not anticipated preparation of this scale. Daejin watched from a ridge. He could see the alien commander's eyes scanning the moon. They were calculating, trying to understand why a single human had caused so much damage. Daejin smiled slightly. Fear was already in Ratek's mind, whether he admitted it or not. The first step of the engagement was psychological. Daejin used the holographic decoys to create illusions of humans everywhere. Ratek's soldiers fired at shadows, wasting energy and resources. Explosions were set off in sequence to confuse the enemy's coordination. Panic spread among the mercenaries like wildfire. When Ratek finally landed on the moon's surface, he expected resistance, but the environment was his enemy. Narrow tunnels forced his soldiers into traps. Collapsing rocks blocked retreat paths, and Daejin struck from unseen positions. Each attack was precise, efficient, and non-lethal where possible. Fear was his ally. Varn, still recovering from the previous encounter, was captured again. Daejin approached the prisoner briefly. "Tell your commander, humans are not what you expect. We are patient. We are adaptable. "We are dangerous," Varn growled, but Dajin left him and returned to higher ground. From there, he had full control of the battlefield. Every movement of Ratek and his forces was visible. The alien commander's pride and anger led to mistakes, which Dajin anticipated and exploited. Hours passed and the syndicate was forced to retreat. Ratek ordered withdrawal. His pride shattered and his soldiers scattered. Dajin allowed them to leave, watching carefully to ensure none followed survivors back to colonies. When the dust settled, Dajin contacted Mira again. "They have left. Ratek survived, but he has learned the cost of underestimating us." "Good," Mira said. "You are changing the game. But this is only the beginning. Next time it will be more personal. Ratek will not forget." Dajin looked at the stars above. He knew she was right. This was a temporary victory, but it was necessary. Humans needed to be seen as strong, adaptable, and clever. If the galaxy continued to see them as weak, the consequences would be catastrophic. He left the moon, taking survivors and captured soldiers with him. Each had learned something vital. Humans could fight smarter, survive, and turn the hunter into the hunted. And somewhere far in space, Ratek nursed his pride and plotted revenge. Dajin didn't fear him. He understood one truth. Strength was not always in weapons or size. Humans had endurance, strategy, and the will to survive. That was something no mercenary, alien, or warlord could fully comprehend until it was too late. The legend of the human hunter grew that day. Across the systems, stories would spread of a single human who had turned the syndicate into chaos. Rumors of his tactics, his traps, and his patience would travel far and wide, and the galaxy began to whisper one warning: never hunt humans. Ratek could not forget the moon. The memory of the humans turning his soldiers into chaos burned in his mind. Every failure replayed, every trap he had not anticipated, every soldier lost, it all fueled his anger. The alien mercenary commander was proud, feared and ruthless, but for the first time, he understood a truth he could not admit aloud. Humans were dangerous. He spent weeks rebuilding his forces, recruiting from distant sectors, and training harder than ever before. Varn, still humiliated, was forced to learn and to follow Ratek's orders without question. The commander knew that facing Dajin would be different. He would come prepared, ruthless, and without hesitation. But even in his careful planning, he could not fully predict what awaited him. Dajin, meanwhile, prepared quietly. He knew the syndicate would not rest. He studied past patterns, learning how Ratek thought, how his soldiers moved, and how their technology worked. Every piece of data, every past raid, every failure became part of a strategy. He was patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. He trained with Mira and other survivors, refining tactics, teaching adaptability, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The first sign came in the form of mercenary scouts. Small ships moved too close to human colonies, testing defenses. Dajin intercepted their signals, tracking them silently. He did not strike immediately. He observed, recording everything for the moment when he would face the syndicate directly. When Ratek finally arrived, the tension was palpable. The alien's ship was massive, black and menacing against the backdrop of stars. He landed on a remote station near a human research colony, expecting resistance, but he had underestimated the humans' preparation. Dajin was already waiting, moving through the shadows with calm confidence. The first clash was subtle. Ratek sent his elite hunters into the colony, but Dajin had prepared traps, decoys, and alarms. The humans moved quickly, guiding the invaders into positions where they could be observed but not harm the civilians. Explosions and smoke filled the corridors, creating confusion. The alien mercenaries were skilled, but every move they made was anticipated. Varn, leading part of the force, realized too late that Dajin had set multiple layers of defense. Every attack was countered, every advance slowed, every retreat blocked. The humans were not fighting blindly. They were using knowledge, patience, and cunning. For the first time, Ratek's soldiers felt fear, not from weapons, but from the humans' will and strategy. Dajin did not reveal himself immediately. He struck only when necessary, using the environment, timing, and strategy to dismantle the syndicate's plans. He moved silently, appearing in shadows, striking quickly and disappearing before the enemy could respond. His movements were precise, efficient, and terrifying. Finally, Ratek confronted him directly. He had expected a wild human, desperate and reckless, but Dajin was calm, composed, and confident. The alien's yellow eyes burned with anger. You think you can stop me? Ratek hissed, his claws glinting in the dim light. Dejin looked at him steadily. I am not stopping you. I am showing you why humans are not to be underestimated. Ratek lunged and the battle began. Unlike the previous encounters, this was direct and personal. The two moved quickly, striking, dodging, and using every advantage. Dejin was smaller, weaker physically, but he used speed, environment, and timing to his advantage. Ratek underestimated him at every turn, and each mistake cost him. The battle spread through the colony, tearing apart hallways and control rooms. Ratek's soldiers tried to intervene, but Dejin had already set multiple traps. One by one, the alien reinforcements were slowed, captured, or routed. Varn, again humiliated, realized that Dejin was not just strong, he was smarter. Each action had purpose, each trap was calculated, and each move struck fear into the mercenaries. Pretek growled, realizing he had underestimated humans. What are you? He demanded, striking again. Dejin blocked and countered. We are what you always thought we were not, he said. We are survival, strategy, and patience. We are humans. The words seemed to strike deeper than any blow. Ratek hesitated for a moment, a fatal mistake. Dejin seized the opportunity, using the alien's momentum to his advantage. A combination of strikes and traps finally forced Ratek to retreat. The humans did not pursue him immediately. Dejin allowed Ratek to leave with his pride shattered. Every alien who survived the encounter carried back a single message. Humans were stronger than they appeared. Not in size, but in intelligence, patience, and willpower. After the battle, Dejin gathered Mira and the remaining human defenders. We have won this round, he said, but they will return. Ratek will come again, stronger, angrier, and more prepared. Mira nodded. And we will be ready. You've changed the game. The Syndicate will think twice before attacking humans now. Dejin looked at the horizon. The stars were cold and distant, but they seemed quieter now. The humans had survived. They had shown strength and adaptability. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were not prey. They were a force to be reckoned with. He prepared for the next challenge, knowing that the confrontation with Ratek was not over. The alien mercenary would return, and when he did, it would be personal. But Dejin was ready. He had patience, strategy, and allies, and more than anything, he had the knowledge that humans were not weak. They were unstoppable when united and determined. In the shadows of the abandoned colony, survivors whispered his name. They told the story of the human who faced the most fearsome mercenary in the galaxy and survived. They spoke of his patience, his strategy, and his courage. And the message spread beyond human settlements, reaching every alien who had ever thought humans were easy prey. Never hunt humans. And somewhere far away, Ratek nursed his pride and plotted his next move. He would not forget the human who had defeated him. But for the first time, he understood a truth that he could not fully admit. The humans were not what they seemed. They were predators, hunters, and survivors in ways no alien had expected. The galaxy had begun to take notice. Stories of Park Dejin, the human who had humiliated the Kreth Syndicate, spread through star systems. Mercenaries whispered his name in fear, and even powerful warlords thought twice before challenging human settlements. Yet for Dejin, there was no time to celebrate. He knew the fight was not over. Ratek had survived, and the final confrontation was inevitable. Dejin moved quietly aboard a small command ship. The interior was minimal, designed for efficiency rather than comfort. He reviewed every report from human colonies, every signal from the Syndicate, and every piece of intelligence Mira had collected. He knew Ratek's next move would be bold. The alien commander was intelligent and ruthless, and he would not fail twice. Mira joined him in the control room, her expression serious. He's coming, she said. All of his best soldiers, and he has new ships. He wants revenge, and he will stop at nothing. Dejin nodded. Then we prepare. This time it will be different. I will face him directly, but only where I have advantage. The humans will survive, and the Syndicate will learn why fear exists. The location was chosen carefully, a large, abandoned orbital station in the Helios system. It had long corridors, hidden control rooms, and enough space to manipulate movement. Dejin spent days preparing it. Every corridor was rigged, every blind spot noted, every escape route planned. He moved silently among the corridors, practicing, imagining the battle before it happened. When Ratek's fleet appeared, it was terrifying. Sleek warships with black hulls glinting in the distant light of the star. Fighters tore through space and ground forces descended onto the station. They expected resistance, but not the level of preparation Daejin had orchestrated. The first clash began with confusion. Syndicate soldiers moved cautiously, but the humans had traps, hidden sensors, and decoys. Explosions erupted as they entered the station, blinding their sensors and breaking their formations. Daejin moved unseen, controlling the battlefield with precision. Each move was calculated, each step meant to delay, confuse, or eliminate. Varn appeared, recovered, and angrier than before. He had learned some of Daejin's tactics, but still underestimated him. Daejin struck silently, using narrow corridors to funnel the alien and setting small explosives to cut off retreat. Varn roared in frustration but could not catch the human. Finally, Ra-Tek arrived on the station itself. The commander's presence filled the corridors like darkness. His yellow eyes scanned for the human who had defeated him twice. Daejin watched from the shadows, calm and ready. He knew Ra-Tek's pride would make him reckless, but he also respected the alien's intelligence. This was no ordinary fight. It was a battle of wits, patience, and determination. The confrontation was immediate. Ra-Tek lunged, swinging claws and roaring. Daejin dodged, rolled, and countered, striking with speed and precision. The corridor shook from the force of their blows. Daejin did not attack recklessly. Every movement was deliberate. Every strike taught Ra-Tek that brute strength alone would not win. Ra-Tek's soldiers tried to intervene, but the station itself became part of Daejin's defense. Doors locked automatically, tunnels collapsed, and corridors shifted through remote controls Daejin had set up earlier. The mercenaries were trapped, confused, and afraid. The humans moved with purpose, using every advantage. Daejin spoke calmly to Ra-Tek during the battle. You think strength is claws and armor, but real strength is knowing your enemy, using your environment, and surviving against the odds. Ra-Tek snarled. Humans are weak. I will destroy you. You underestimate us, Daejin said. That is why you will fail. The fight escalated through the station. Sparks flew from torn wiring, alarms screamed, and debris fell from the ceiling. Daejin used every trick, every tunnel, and every prepared trap. Ra-Tek's attacks became desperate. Pride and anger clouded his judgment. Daejin waited, patient, until the perfect moment. Finally, Daejin forced Ra-Tek into a large control chamber. The alien was exhausted, frustrated, and unable to retreat. Daejin moved in silently, using a combination of leverage and precision strikes to disable Ra-Tek without lethal force. The mercenary commander fell to his knees, breathing heavily, defeated but alive. Daejin stood over him. This is what happens when you hunt humans, he said softly. We survive, we adapt. We fight back. And we are not what you think. Ra-Tek glared, his pride shattered. He had underestimated the human again, and the lesson was clear. He would retreat, regroup, and perhaps return, but he would never forget this defeat. Daejin turned to the remaining syndicate soldiers. Go, he said. Tell your commander what happens when humans fight. Let this be a warning. The soldiers hesitated, then fled. The humans did not pursue them. This was not about revenge. It was about sending a message. The galaxy had to learn that humans were not weak, that they were capable, clever, and dangerous when challenged. After the battle, Mira contacted Daejin. You've done it. Ra-Tek is defeated, and the Syndicate has no choice but to respect humans. The colonies are safer now. Daejin nodded quietly. It is not just about safety. It is about reputation. Humans cannot be prey. They must be seen as a species to be respected, feared if necessary, and never underestimated. The survivors of the station gathered, looking at Daejin with awe. They whispered his name, told stories of his patience, strategy, and courage. For the first time, humans in the Outer Rim truly believed they could survive anything the galaxy threw at them. Far away, in the cold void of space, Ra-Tek nursed his wounds and pride. He knew he had been bested, humiliated, and outsmarted. For the first time he understood fear. The humans were no longer just weak prey. They were hunters, survivors, and predators in their own right. The story of Park Daejin spread across systems. Mercenaries told of the human who could manipulate the battlefield, predict movements, and strike with deadly precision. War councils debated whether to engage humans directly. Many decided against it, remembering the cost of underestimating them. Daejin watched the stars from the station's observation deck. The galaxy was wide, filled with threats, and the Kreth Syndicate might return, but he was ready. Humans had shown their strength. They had endured, fought, and turned hunters into the hunted. Somewhere, deep in the blackness of space, Ratek whispered to himself, "Never again. Never hunt humans," and the warning spread through the galaxy. Mercenaries, warlords, and alien species learned what humans were capable of. The predators who once thought humans weak began to pause, reconsider, and respect the force that had survived, adapted, and struck back with precision. Dajan stood alone on the observation deck, silent. He had won this battle, but the war for humanity's survival in the galaxy was ongoing. Every victory was a lesson, every strategy a preparation for the next. And in his heart he knew one truth: humans were not just survivors. They were apex predators in their own right, and the galaxy would remember that lesson forever.